Hey, Ori.
Hey guys,
How you doing?
outstanding and getting better.
Okay, I love that. Outstanding and getting better.
I stole it from Zig Ziglar. He always says, everyone says, "Oh, how you doing?" People say, "Good,
Yeah.
fine, okay." Day's almost over. So that doesn't help the world any. So people, how you doing? You say, outstanding, but getting better, and say it like you actually mean it. It leaves people like, what are they on? Or like,
Uh-huh.
it leaves it like, wow, why do I just say good? And it's awesome, like try it.
So thank you for meeting with us today and chatting about this whole concept of making switches.
My
So
pleasure.
our goal today is to just have you talk to us a little bit about yourself and what kind of switches have you done, have you experienced in your life that have been the most impactful? Because we really want to kind of inspire other people and show them that there's so many of us doing switches all the time, being brave all the time, and what that can possibly look like when you take that jump.
Yeah,
right?
that leap of faith.
That leap of faith. Yeah.
I'm an adventurer that is addicted to making art.
And I
Uh,
love art.
I'm a big goofball. I came from Israel on my 9th birthday. I learned English by watching cartoons. That might explain a lot. And I get bored easily. My life kind of plays out like an action comedy romance, and like my filter for life is, will it make a cool story? Like, I don't actually sit there thinking this, but that's in hindsight, looking at my life, when my friend said, "Hey, do you want to go to Budapest and drive tanks?" Like, that was a no-brainer. I'm like, I'm going. Like, I didn't, it's like, I like doing crazy, stupid things. My poor parents, I love them. I put them through so much. They're, I'm sure, guaranteed a spot in heaven. I was a couch surfer for 6 years, which I guess technically means I was homeless for 6 years, but I was staying with UFC cage fighters, roller derby players, best-selling authors, the CEO of Zappos.com. If you study internet marketing, many of the top dogs in that. And, I got to see the world, stay with hundreds of people, thus discover a ton about myself, humanity, and I was listening to audiobooks at the same time. So 6 years of just life changing. And but yeah, I guess it's true what they say. You can't spell original without Ori.
I love that, man.
That is so nice.
I love that. So a couch surfer. I've never heard anyone say it in that way, but it sounds like I would want to be a couch surfer.
There is a website called couchsurfing.org. If you're curious about it, you can find someone in your very backyard. Not obviously your backyard, but if you want, you can put someone in your backyard because you can host and travel. I didn't really use the website. Actually, funny story. So what happened, I was doing photography at the time. One of my many switches, as we previously discussed, was apparently I had like a boatload of careers as well that all sort of tied together, but photography was one of them. And I was doing that. I was living in South Florida. I had a place on the beach, and I was just, my landlady wanted to renew my lease, and I was like, she wanted to charge more money. I was never taking advantage of the beach except for do like swimsuit shoots. So I didn't have to wake up at 4 a.m. to get my gear. I had to wake up at 6 a.m. now. And, when guests came down, would go to the beach. So I was like, what do I do? What do I do? Do I want to renew here? Do I want to go back to Miami? Do I want to, at 29, I didn't want to go back and to move in with my folks again, So I was pondering all this. And my buddy says, dude, why don't you go to LA? Like, your photography is so creative. People there would love you. And you could crash on Richard Brown's couch for like a month. He's a mutual friend of ours. And said, and longer if you, pitched in for the rent. But, within a month, you could probably find a bunch of gigs. I'm like, little light bulb moment went off. And I said, Dan, let me call you back. And 2 hours later, I'm like, okay, here's what I'm going to do. rather than just going to LA and crashing on Richard's couch, I'm going to go everywhere, stay on everyone's couches, and then I'll decide where I want to like renew my lease. 6 years later, it ended up being Austin. And since then, I've also moved again to Georgia, Northern Cali, Southern Cali, Tucson, back to Southern Cali, back to Northern Cali, and now I'm in Phoenix, Arizona. So, you know, it all started with, do I want to renew my lease? And you think about it, like most people are in the same spot because that's where they are. So why go elsewhere, right? I do what's called freestyle couch surfing. I mean, I just go someplace and I'll meet people and people meet me, and, you know, like I'm the stranger that's got good candy. People are like, hey, why don't you come stay with us? You know, like because I can solve anyone's business problems. I'm entertaining. I've got all these crazy stories. I'm helpful. I solve like personal problems. I just solve a lot. I'm a problem solver.
So, Ori, why don't you tell us about if you were to pick one switch that
It's got to be art. Actually, my favorite switch, like I said, the one that I use the most is this one right here.
the light.
The light switch. No, okay. I make art every single day for the past 1,900 days or so. Let's say it this way. I haven't missed a day since April 22nd, 2012. And why that is a couple of things.
Phenomenal.
I used to draw, paint, doodle mostly. My mom still tells me to this date, you know, I think it was third grade, fourth grade or something. She went to the parent teacher conference and the teacher's like, yeah, you know, Ori's one of our brighter students. He's always raising his hand, always getting the right answers, always like participating in stuff, and he's always taking notes. Or so I thought. When it came time to the biannual notebook review, I took Ori's notebook. There was not a single letter or number written in there. Ori had just been doodling the whole year, and I just thought he was taking notes, you know, like, oops. Yeah, so I used to like and draw and paint. Bought a bunch of books as a kid on how to draw and paint, but the thing is, I never read them. I didn't have the willpower or discipline. I was a lazy little fucker. And the cool thing was, you know, my buddy up the street, this kid Joe, man, his parents were strict, and I thought his mom was a bitch at the time. I mean, they were cool to me, but you know, like they were like mean to Joe. Joe couldn't come out until he did his homework, until he practice his piano, and until he did his art homework. Like he had extracurricular, like not from the school, but and you know, I was like, oh man, that sucks. He doesn't get to come out and play and all that stuff. And now I'm wishing my parents were like, you know, that mean to me, because it took years for me to realize that, dude, you need to practice. You got, you know, you gotta have time in the game if you want to be good. And so it wasn't until in the middle of couch surfing, actually, which I guess in itself was a cool switch, which we already covered. I one of the biggest switches in my life, actually, a lot of like my life completely changed when I discovered audiobooks. That was in 2005.
Okay.
I told you already I was living next to the beach in Fort Lauderdale. I had the original iPods when they came out, and I had like a steady mix of rock and techno. And what I would do is whenever I would start to slow down or get tired, I would just crank the volume to the bone. I'm like, you know, and it would shoot me running faster again. And I don't know where, I have no clue. It is like divine intervention or whatever. But one day I get the thought out of the blue, I want to put on audiobooks. Like, I don't have any audiobooks, and aren't those boring? I'm like, all right, well, you know, I had the idea, let's try. And a buddy had a subscription site, so I'm like, hey, can I use your site? And sure. And I sort through all the books. I don't recognize any, but then I'm like, wait a minute, Dale Carnegie's Win Friends and Influence People. I'm like, that one's been on my shelf literally for 10 years
Good one.
at the time. Never read it. It's
Wow.
boring. So
Mhm.
I put it on there. I'm like, all right, let's see if I can keep my pace and listen to an audiobook. And even though it was a really slow narration and it was a really ancient book, this was written in the 1930s. Obviously, they've had slight revisions since, but basically, an old book designed for business C people and all that. I was listening to it. I'm like, wow! I not only kept my pace, but as I was listening, I'm like, this this stuff is powerful. Like I recognize powerful knowledge. I'm like, let me try this stuff out. And I did. And I was like, wow. I'm like, all right, give me another and another. And then I started talking to some friends of mine. I'm like, dude, I'm all excited about this audiobook, so I could talk about it. And I got invited to this mastermind, this personal development mastermind that a couple of my friends were holding. They couldn't tell me about it before because they didn't know I was into personal development, because I wasn't.
Right.
But now I was addicted. So first thing I tell them, you want to change your life, uh, learn, like just keep learning. It might not be audiobooks for you. For me, it was
For me, for me,
apparently.
for me, it is too.
Be, well, here's the thing: most people don't give audiobooks a try, and they don't realize that we all have different learning modalities. Meaning, some people like to read, other people like to touch. Everyone likes to touch. No, but it's doing, kinesthetic, seeing, so hearing. I'm a slow reader. Those books I told you about, the art books that I bought when I was like in 7th and 8th grade and stuff, I still have them. Still haven't read them. I looked through the pictures. That's what got me excited. But, if they were videos, I would have been through them a million times by now. But so find your learning modality. For me, audio is fantastic. Zig Ziglar, the one who says super good, but getting better. He calls it the university on wheels. And he says, if you, and this is an ancient statistic because he is like an older gentleman who spoke way back in the day, but at the time he said, look, if you have a standard commute, half an hour to work, half an hour back, so an hour a day, 5 days a week, 50 weeks out of the year, and you have audiobooks on the whole time of your commute, by the end of 3 years, you will have gotten the equivalent of a 2-year college education. Well, I had a 6-year commute where some days I was driving 10 hours, 20 hours. I usually had audiobooks on, plus while I was walking through the woods, while I was working out and stuff. And, I don't think I ever once listened to like a fun book like Harry Potter or something like that. It was all like business and marketing and all that stuff. And that's why Katie tagged me like, oh, like talk to Ori, it can help with all this stuff. I just have a huge supply of knowledge. I don't always apply it towards my own thing. I'm lazy as the next person oftentimes. But anyways, that's, I'll rewind to that modality thing is a huge thing. And so the art thing, I was doodling, never really took it seriously. Nobody ever said, hey, Ori, you could have a career in art. You can be an artist. Never crossed my mind. My dad had a restaurant, as a business guy. He liked electronics. That was the switch joke I was going to make earlier. I was like, oh, what's your favorite switch? Oh, well, my dad, got me into electronics when I was a little kid. I was the only 6-year-old on the block with his own soldering iron. But the thing was that I was drawing. I was constantly drawn to it, but I never thought much of it. It was just something I do for fun, right? In 2001, I was dating this girl. I was living in South Beach, Florida, and this girl I was dating says, "Dude, your art's so great." I'm like, whatever. I mean, she's dating me. How good can her judgment be, And she's like, no, you don't understand. I showed your stuff to my mom, and she works with all these galleries, and she thinks it's great. She wants to meet with you. I'm like, okay. And the mom says, dude, your stuff's amazing. You got to do an art show. And I'm thinking, well, she's not sleeping with me, and she works with galleries. She's got to know what she's talking about. So I don't back then I didn't know what I know now about how to research things, how to look into things, and the internet wasn't as powerful. So I didn't like look up what do you do at an art show or anything like that. I just put my feelers out to any art show, and um, I found one, and it wasn't really a real art show. Apparently, it's one of those, first Friday, second Saturday art walk things every single city ever has.
Okay.
And I put all this work and effort into it. I got my buddy's trade show booth for Vegas. I had to get like a moving truck just to get this thing there. And it turns out it's me with this giant, like, lit up metal thing and these big paintings, and a couple people that have these little small card tables with some beads on them and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And it was bad weather, and maybe 20 people showed up the whole night, 30 people, I don't know, and no one bought anything. So I figured, well, guess I'm not an artist, because, hey, if I can't sell anything, I must not be any good. And thank God that I had more persistence when it came to learning to walk, because I'm pretty sure I didn't get that right the first time. I stopped making art for about 10 years.
Wow.
And then while I was couch surfing, see, that just keeps coming back up. Everything's tied together.
Everything is together, yes.
While I was couch surfing in 2011, my buddy invited me to come to Maui, and he said, crash with us. We'll buy your ticket here. My girlfriend needs a website. I highly recommend getting skills that you can do from anywhere, because then you can barter like anywhere you go.
That's true.
So I was doing photography, videography, websites. I can do that stuff from anywhere. So it's perfect. So if you're going to go couch surfing for 6 years, 20 years, whatever, websites you can make from anywhere.
Those things, yeah.
And money and the barter system, they're both fantastic. So I bartered a website for a trip to Maui, and I stayed with my buddy for 2.5 months. And I remember when he was telling me about it, like, yeah, come over, we'll do. I'm like, yeah, that sounds cool. And he's like, yeah, and I know you love like cool art and stuff, like you're always doing cool graphicsy kind of stuff. So there's like this place called Lahaina. It's got all these cool galleries. And I'm like, I really didn't want to go, but I didn't say anything. I didn't want to be rude. I'm like, yeah, cool. I get to Maui. I don't mention it. 2.5 months go by. And it's time to head back to the mainland in like 2 days. And all of a sudden Craig's like, oh no. I'm like, what? He's like, I never took you to Lahaina. I'm like, oh, it's okay. He's like, no, I'm a bad friend. I'm like, no, I had a great time. It's beautiful. Like, I'm cool. He's like, no, we'll go tomorrow. I'm like, yay. In hindsight, I'm figuring, well, if I'm not an artist, then all art's gotta suck. And I just thought it was gonna be boring and snooty and all that, but it wasn't. We walked in, and the very first one, I'm like, whoa, look at this stuff. And it was actually boring for my buddy, because he had to wait on me. I had to look at every single painting, every single sculpture at every single place. I'm just walking around. And by the 4th or 5th one, I just had this feeling of heartbreak. I was like, oh man, I realized that art is actually my thing. It's the thing that I was always doing, regardless of whether I considered if it was for money or not. It's something that I just enjoy. It's something that, I kind of like, I guess, live for. And I haven't been doing it for 10 years because I tried something once that I had no idea how to do, and I didn't succeed right away. Boo-hoo, and I was like, wow, you're an idiot.
People are like that too, Ori.
Oh, everything.
They don't even give themselves an opportunity. You
go to the gym. Oh, no, it was too hard. Yeah, of course. First time I tried bench press, I couldn't even lift the bar. It was embarrassing. A couple years later, I could bench press 350, leg press over 1,000. Now I have no desire to do that, but when I was younger and riding a motorcycle, and it mattered like how many girls turn when I walked by. Yeah, it was a big deal, and I would put the hours into it. But the very first time, I remember it was in a high school weightlifting class, and I was like super embarrassed, because like the whole football team's in that class. Their coach was the teachers, right? And they're like bench pressing 150, 200, and like I'm struggling with a 45-pound bar. Well, yeah, because I've never done it before,
Yeah.
So I realized this. I'm like, oh man, like while we're in Lahaina, I gotta get back into this. I can do stuff that's better than these people's stuff. Like, yeah, maybe not at the time. Again, like the weightlifting thing, yeah, 45 pound, but I knew I could build that 45 pound into more. I knew I could do better. So I'm like, all right, screw it. I'm just going to start doing art every single day. And that lasted about 2 weeks. And
Yes,
that also happened. So, but 2 weeks was, better than trying something just one day. And then a year later, not a full year later, but the next calendar year. So in April in 2012, I was sitting there, like, no internet, no distractions, just 4 days in a quiet room, trying to think of my life. What do I want? What don't I want? And what am I going to do to get those things? And when I thought about what don't I want, I remembered very vividly that feeling of heartbreak that I had when I was in those galleries. I'm like, I don't want that. And what's my strategy? What am I going to do about it? I'm like, I'm going to leverage accountability. Accountability is a superpower that we all have. Get someone else involved, whether it's one person, whether it's just Facebook, whether it's whatever it is. 4 years ago, it was 5 years ago now, I don't remember. There's 4 kinds of people in this world: those that can do math and those that can't. So I think it was 4 years ago. It was July. I posted on Facebook, accountability, public accountability. I posted on Facebook, like, hey, I'm going to get 6-pack abs by my birthday, which is December 16th. Remember that, highlight that. Now you know what to get me. No, I'm kidding. So December 16th, I posted on Facebook, and to stay accountable, now that there's people out there that are, going to be making sure that I do this every single week on, I think it was Fridays, I would post a picture of me in my underwear and a picture of the scale, forward, sideways, scale. Not really fun those first few weeks when you got, an extra couple dozen pounds to lose, but it certainly inspires the hell out of you to make sure that the next week's picture is better, and so on. And you know what? By December, I had my first 6-pack. I was shredded. I still to this day don't recognize those pictures. I'm like, can't believe that's me. Like, and the cool thing about, so that's a switch. And so accountability is one of those things that's going to overlap with any switch. No matter what you do, find a way to keep yourself accountable. That's going to keep you going. And so thinking back to the getting a 6-pack thing, I was like, that's what I'm going to do. And so I posted on Facebook, hey, I'm going to be doing a drawing every day. And I figured somewhere out there is some asshole that's just waiting to go, I knew you couldn't do it when I miss a day. Well, that poor asshole has to be like pretty fucking bored by now, because it's been 6 years. I'm in my 6th year of doing art every single day. And some days I don't sleep, literally. I've blown off friends. I say it like this. I'm like, there's no girl that's hot enough and no party that's wild enough to where I'm going to miss doing my art. I went to Mexico birthday with my brothers, drinking a lot of tequila. I'm still like, it doesn't matter. There's no set rules. I can doodle on a napkin at a bar and take a picture of my cell phone. That still counts. However, the more I've done it, the less I want to do something like that. So I think there was maybe one napkin like that entire time, the entire 6 years. Usually I'll just, even when I say I'll just do a 5-minute doodle, it ends up like being 8 hours, 14 hours. And I'm like, damn it, not again.
So you like completely lose track of time when you're doing art.
Hey, may we all find that thing where we absolutely have no clue what time it is. That's, but I went through a lot of life to find that thing. And so now that I've found it, think about it, I blew it off for 10 years. Right. Like my life's purpose, my soul, whatever the hell you want to call it. I blew it off for 10 years because of one stupid like misunderstanding of life. So now I will defend it to the death. If someone even jokes around about like, oh, like usually it's on Facebook, kind of like a big deal, like every anniversary, like, hey, gonna hit my 7th year. They're like, cool, now you don't have to do that daily thing anymore. I'm like,
Oh.
yeah, you just get like a cold silence from me. Like I do not take that lightly. My current girlfriend is wonderful and understanding, and she gets it, she appreciates it. And so on Valentine's Day, we had this beautiful place in Sedona. We went hiking, we had wine, we had all this stuff, and she makes the bedroom up, and it just looked so beautiful. And I got the fireplace going, and I'm about to jump into bed. She's like, "Hey, baby." I'm like, yeah. It's like, "Did you do your art?" I'm like, "No, not yet." And she's like, "Do your art." And I'm like, oh, like, I think the world is gonna get a stick figure. And she's like, "No, make some art." I'm like, okay. I was literally in tears that night as I was making my art, because I just wanted to go and be with her. I mean, I was making next to her, but yeah. So it's literally like I've kicked a girl out of bed one time because I realized, oh my God, I didn't do my art today. Thankfully, she was curious as to how I make my art and stuff, so she didn't like get too angry. She wanted to watch and stuff, but like I take this pretty seriously. And that's a weird thing. Like, I'm not the kind of guy, I didn't think I was the kind of guy, and anyone that knows me wouldn't think that I'm the kind of guy to be able to do something every single day. And yet you tell someone that you've done something every single day for 6 years, and everyone's like, wow, that's amazing.
Yeah.
They can get you into business deals, that can get you into all sorts of other things, because it says a lot about your character. Like, that's the kind of person you want to work with. There's the common belief of how you should do things.
Right.
A diet is generally boring, like you have smaller meals and lettuce and whatever. And well, that's not my belief. I say find the weird, freaky way that you can have fun with. I love to mess with people, and so I found some diets that people are like, there's no way, dude, you're going to be fat and have a heart attack and you're going to die. And I was shredding up. It was carb backloading was the one I was doing at the time, and it was so if we pretend that a week is 8 days instead of 7, so 5 days no carbs at all, then the next 3 days no carbs in the morning, then you get a really good weight workout in, and you have a 4-hour window after that weight workout where you have to spike your insulin. Now that could mean have a glass of apple juice and a baked potato, but it could also mean I lived right across the street, literally, like I just went downstairs, across the street, and there was a 7-Eleven at the time I was doing this. So 3 days out of an 8-day week, I would have 2 pints of ice cream, 2 large energy drinks, and 4 bags of candy as like my dinner. 3 nights, that same thing, and people are like, dude, you're gonna die. I just had so much fun posting that stuff, and so I was having fun with it, and so it wasn't like a boring, miserable diet like all the ones I've tried before.
Yeah. Well, and sometimes when you're bored, you don't commit, you don't stick with it.
Well, it's impossible to. I mean, look, willpower is only going to take you so far. Right. Remember, I said the first time, I'm like, I'm going to do art every day. Lasted 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Willpower on its own is powerful, but like you gotta have a really good why. Right now I'm on a diet, and I'm thinking about, well, I've done it before, so I can do it again. I'm not doing it that crazy now. Now I'm doing what's called intermittent fasting. So that means I basically have 1 meal a day at 2 in the afternoon. And Fridays is my cheat day, so I can eat like a fucking pig. I mean, I will go to the buffet and clean them out. I will have all the Starbucks and candy and all that stuff.
When did you start it?
Huh?
When did you start this one? When did you start it?
I think I'm on week 6 now, and well, going back to, if you review your notes from 4 or 5 years ago, I was posting pictures on Friday in my underwear. Now I'm posting pictures in my shorts every Monday, and so now I'm doing like the before and the after each week. You can see it. So I've only been doing it for 6 weeks, but you can already see. And today I woke up and I'm like, wait, my eyes must still be like dry and itchy or something from the lack of sleep. No, I look thinner. Like now weight gain or building a skill or anything like that, it's a gradual thing. It's like, and then all of a sudden it hits.